First off, like this video and subscribe. We have Darian Weeks versus Yohan Lainesse. Fighter number 1, Darian Weeks. Darian, prior to coming to the UFC, he was undefeated. He was 5-0. He fought less competition, but he was able to finish all of his opponents. One thing I noticed when watching his UFC prior fights is he has really good defense and he throws a lot of kicks, especially front kicks. But his game plan is to clinch his opponent up, control him against the cage, take him down, and or land knees. Even when he fought against Bryan Barberena in his first fight in the UFC on short notice, it was clear as day that was his game plan. And like I said, he's defensively sound. He doesn't get hit a lot, especially with big shots. But when he fought Bryan Barberena, you can make an argument that he won the fight. The fight was extremely close up to the third round. The third round, Bryan was able to take away and separate itself. But the first and second round were really close. And the funny thing is, Darian was able to take Bryan down in the first and the second round and control him. So he landed multiple takedowns on Bryan. But the only thing is, I know he took the fight on short notice against Bryan Barberena, but Darian Weeks' striking didn't really look too good. His offensive striking, should I say. His defense looked pretty good. But the thing is, when he started to slow down, Bryan was able to turn up a little bit more. And it was expected because he took the fight on short notice, but he started to get a little sloppy. His punches were a little bit loopy, but it still looked like he may have won a fight against Bryan Barberena. But it's weird because Bryan won 29-28 on all the judges' scorecards. It almost looked like somebody should have won a split decision. But then Darian Weeks fought against Ian Gary after that. And Ian Gary is a nightmare of an opponent. He's 6'3", long arms, undefeated, counterpuncher, good footwork. So this was a tough fight for Darian Weeks, his second fight. So he's really had a tough schedule in the UFC. First fight was against Bryan Barberena. He's a veteran, which I think Darian Weeks won that fight. But then the second fight was against Ian Gary. And that's the thing, he had some success against Ian with the clinch, and he controlled Ian for a couple of moments in each round. And that was an extremely close fight too, but it was clear as day that Ian won that one. But clearly Darian, he's 5'11", and he fights much better against guys his size. But Darian, he's tough, man. He's tough as nails. Like I said, never been finished. And he showed it against Bryan when he was tired, but he was able to still, fight through it and go the distance with Bryan. One thing I would like to see from Darian Weeks is improve offensive striking. He has good front kicks, good body kicks, decent jab, but I'm not seeing him throw his hands. I'm not seeing him letting his hands fly. And it's not the worst thing because he's a defensive fighter, but at the same time, he would score more points if he threw more punches. Because the Ian Gary fight was close. If he would have let his hands go a little bit more, he might would have won that fight. But his opponent is Yohan Lainesse. Yohan, he's 8-1. 6 of his wins come by knockout. 2 of his wins come by decision. He has 1 knockout loss, which was in his last fight. But Yohan is a wild man. If you go and look up some of his UFC prior fights, he's getting guys out of there fast. One thing I noticed is when he throw his punches are not with the best technique. Imagine if he fought somebody like Ian Gary, who's a great counterpuncher. He would get obliterated. But he's good at throwing one strike at a time, and that's where a lot of his knockouts come from, because it don't take a lot from Yohan to knock his opponent out. Another thing is he has a real good double leg takedown, and he can shoot from across the cage, but that's the problem. A lot of times he actually shoots from across the cage. He's capable of covering a lot of distance, but sometimes he shoots from too far away. And against a certain cerebral type of striker who has solid takedown defense, they can pick him apart. But his last fight was against Gabriel Green. He won the first round, and it wasn't even close. He was landing leg kicks, body kicks, punches. He just put on a striking display against Gabriel Green in the first round. But then in the second round, it almost looked like Yohan started to slow down and get a little tired. He started to revert back to some of his bad habits with bad technique, because he was clean and crisp in the first round. His punches and kicks were tight. But then the second round, his technique started to go out the drain. He was able to hurt Gabriel and almost knocked him out. After that moment, after this sequence, it looked like he started to slow down significantly. And then when he started to shoot from across the cage. He started to get stuffed real bad, and then the end was near. And then Gabriel was able to walk forward, put pressure, land body shots, or drop Yohan, and then finish him with strikes. But it was clear as day that Yohan was tired. And fighters like that who have a lot of first round knockouts, a lot of those guys, they don't really do too good in the second and third round. But Yohan is very dangerous. I don't see him winning this fight, because I think Darian is too defensively sound to get caught with any of Yohan's wild strikes. And he's a little faster than Yohan. That's one thing I noticed with Yohan. He's very powerful, but he's a little bit slow. And Yohan do not want to take down Darian. I don't think he wants to go to the ground with Darian, because Darian actually has more submission wins than Yohan. My prediction in this fight is Darian getting Yohan in the second and the third round into deep waters and drowning Yohan. And I'm predicting Darian to win by third round submission. We have Melissa Martinez versus Elise Reed. Yes, Melissa is undefeated. She's 7-0. 5 of her wins come by knockout. 2 of her wins come by decision. The only thing is I don't get too excited about these fighters making their debut, because we see a lot of them and they look world class outside of the UFC, but then when they step in the UFC, they get destroyed, or they just be good enough to stay in the UFC. I see a lot of potential in Melissa. She's a southpaw. She's real patient. She's real technical. She moves real good. She's athletic. She gets in and out well, and she throws a lot of head kicks, a lot of body kicks. But I like how she stays composed and she throws everything behind the jab. And she's a finisher too. She finished 5 of her 7 fights, so she's trying to get her opponent out of there. The only thing is, like I said, like a lot of these fighters, they look like world beaters until they step foot in the UFC. So I would love to see how she does in the UFC so I can make a proper assessment of her. But she looks great. She looks fantastic outside of the UFC. The only thing is, her opponent is Elise Reed, 5-2, 2 wins by knockout, 3 wins by decision, 2 losses by knockout, never been submitted, no decision losses, which is very interesting. What's interesting is how Elise Reed was undefeated until she stepped foot in the octagon. She was 4-0. That's why I don't get too excited over fighters making their debut, unless they're fighters like Michael Morales, because that's a little different. That's a different type of talent right there. But Elise Reed, she's lost 2 out of her 3 fights in the UFC. In both of the fights, she was taken down and ground and pounded in brutal fashion. Before the UFC, she showed better grappling than that. She was actually able to take some opponents down. And then whenever she got taken down, she was able to reverse position a couple times. The UFC is a different level of fighters who are well-rounded and they're good everywhere. But Elise Reed, if I'm gonna just be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of Elise striking. She has a good volume. Like, she throws great volume. But the thing is, her punches are not the most technical, and they only can work on certain fighters. Obviously, it only worked on one fighter, and that was against Amori McKenna. But it worked outside of the UFC, but it's not really working that much in the UFC. But she walks forward, she throws a flurry of punches, she misses a lot of them, she lands some of them, and she has decent power. So if she hurts a fighter, she can like turn up on them. She's a little bit like how Joanna was when she first came to the UFC, without the speed and without the technique, but she's still dangerous and she still has real good cardio. But this is a weird one because it seems like Melissa's a more talented fighter, but at the same time, at least Elise Reed has a win in the UFC, and it doesn't take a lot for fighters to get on a win streak. So who's to say Elise wins this one and then win 2 or 3 more and fights for the belt? I would like to see Elise tighten up her striking just a little bit, and also her ground game, because her takedown defense is only 50%. So I would like to see her improve her takedown defense too. This is a tough one because Melissa hasn't fought in the UFC, and it's kind of hard to assess fighters before that. But Elise lost 2 of her last 3 fights in the UFC, so it's not like she's a world beater in the UFC. But I'm gonna have to go with Melissa by decision because Melissa don't have the style to take Elisa down, but I can see her outstriking Elisa on the feet. Maybe they work towards Elisa's game. Maybe Elisa is more powerful than what we think, and maybe fighters have had to take her down to avoid her volume. But my prediction is Melissa winning a decision. Chad Anheliger versus Heili Alateng. Fighter number 1, Chad Anheliger, 12-5, 7 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission, 2 wins by decision. Never been knocked out, has 5 losses by submission and 0 losses by decision. And a lot of his submission losses he had was early on in his career. So he had all of his submission losses within the first 7 fights of his career. Now he's on a 10-fight win streak. So it shows you how much resilience and persistence he has to change his career over like that. His career started off kind of rough. After he lost 3 in a row, he won his next fight by knockout in 53 seconds, and then he submitted 3 guys in a row by guillotine, so he showed that he has improved ground game. Chad Anheliger has a high ceiling in the UFC, so he's another monster they have in the UFC's bantamweight division. The thing is with Chad Anheliger, he may have some of the most knockout power out of any other guy in the bantamweight division. So we're talking about just knocking somebody out of nowhere with hands off the top. I can't really think of anybody else who has the type of power that he has other than Song Yadong. He's becoming more well-rounded. I didn't like his fight against Muin Gaffarov. I felt like he lost that fight. He outstruck Gaffarov 47 significant strikes to 31. Actually, in the first round, he was able to knock down Gaffarov. Gaffarov was able to recover, but then dominate him the first round and the second round. And he even had a moment against Chad in the third round. So this was a weird fight. Other than Gaffarov getting knocked down in the first round, it seemed like he won. He was able to take Chad down 5 times, control him for over 7 minutes. He won a split decision. He did outstrike Gafarov. It was a good performance, but normally in the past they give fights like this to the grappler who controlled the striker. Chad moves well. He's real smart. He has like a technical brawler type style. He's trying to throw hands, but he has pretty decent technique to go with it. So he's not wild or anything. He's just looking to catch his opponent, especially with his right hand. We have seen him controlled a little bit, held against the cage. So that's something that he has to work on, especially in the UFC's bantamweight division. But his opponent is Heili Alateng. Heili is the epitome of inconsistent. He's 15-8, 5 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission, 7 wins by decision, 3 losses by knockout, 1 loss by submission, 4 losses by decision. He's looked good as of late. That's the thing with Heili. He has good performances here, but then in his next performance, it'd be bad. Like his last performance was against Kevin Kroom, and he obliterated Kevin early on in the first round. He was able to hurt him with a right hand, pour it on him, and get the finish. It kind of looked like an early stoppage a little bit. That was a real good performance by Heili. He was able to pull the trigger and get the finish. But he had other performances where he didn't really look too good. Like when he fought against Casey Kenny, like Heili made Casey look like he was an undefeated kickboxing champion because he was able to land punches, body kicks, leg kicks. So he was able to just display just beautiful striking. Casey was actually able to hurt Heili a couple times. Heili showed that he had like a ton of heart. Another thing I noticed with Heili is he had a couple performances where his wrestling saved him. He was getting outstruck by Gustavo Lopez. He was able to take him down 3 times. He was getting outstruck by Ryan Benoit. He was able to take him down 4 times. And he was getting dismantled by Batgarel Denis. He was able to take him down 3 times. So one thing I noticed with Heili, his wrestling saves him a lot of the times. But whenever it doesn't save him, he gets crucified. He has 3 knockout losses and they are real brutal. So there are also questions about his durability, which he hasn't been knocked out since 2017. He got dropped early on in that fight against Kai Asakura. He got knocked down against Kai, and Kai went forward and landed a beautiful flying knee and put Heili away. So there's always questions about Heili's chin, but he doesn't get knocked out back to back. There's always questions about that, but he's really inconsistent. There's no way I think he'll win this fight against Chad. He don't really struggle against wrestlers, but we have seen Chad control just a little bit, and Heili has real good takedowns, but I can't see Heili controlling him for 3 rounds. I can see him controlling him here or there, but Chad's going to connect on the chin to Heili and get the knockout. I'm going with Chad by 2nd round knockout. Got an easy one for y'all. We have Norma Dumont versus Danyelle Wolf. Norma, she's 7-2. 0 of her wins come by knockout, 2 of her wins come by submission, and 5 of her wins come by decision. She has 2 losses, 1 by knockout. She lost by knockout to Megan Anderson in her first fight in the UFC. She has no submission losses, and she has 1 decision loss. And she fought Megan Anderson on short notice too. That's why the fight happened to begin with, and that's a big step up in competition, especially in your first fight in the UFC. And after that fight against Megan, she was able to go on a 3-fight win streak and beat Ashley Evans Smith, Felicia Spencer, and Aspen Ladd. She lost to Macy Chiasson, and Macy was able to just take her down repeatedly. She took her down 6 times and won a smart fight, and still only won a split decision. So that shows you how good Normal striking is. So the thing is with Normal, she's a Sanda striker. So Sanda's like Chinese kickboxing, and you can see it a lot in her striking because she has good movement. She doesn't get hit a lot. She's good at avoiding punches and kicks. So she's a smart, mobile fighter. She throws a lot of volume. She throws like a lot of strikes. She always outworks her opponents on the feet. That's the thing with Normal, because in all her fights, she outstruck her opponents other than Megan. So even against Ashley Evans, she outstruck her 94-42 and even knocked her down in the 3rd round and came close to getting the finish. Yeah, but Normal, she's pretty athletic. She's physically strong. Her takedown defense is 70, so it's about average. I think Normal, she can compete with the elite fighters in the featherweight division. It's not like a lot of fighters in there because it's a new weight class, so it's still a growing weight class, but I can see her being in the top 5 in the featherweight division. Her opponent is Danyelle Wolf. Danyelle, she's only 1-0 in her MMA career, but the thing is with Danyelle, she's a former multiple-time boxing champion. Her boxing record is 27-14. Danyelle, in her only fight, she fought on Dana White's Contender Series. She fought against Tanisha Tennant, and Tanisha put on a striking display against Danyelle. She outstruck her 85-51. She landed more. She had a higher striking percentage. She landed 55% compared to Danielle's 28%. But some kind of way she ended up getting the unanimous decision nod, which most people thought that she lost the fight. But what Tanisha did well against Danyelle is, which we can already predict, when boxers jump to MMA,
MMA, fighters do one or two things to them. They attack their legs or they keep taking them down. The thing is with Danyelle, she has extraordinary takedown defense. Her takedown defense is 100%. But what Tanisha was able to do was attack her leg. She was able to land 44 leg kicks on her and really mix it up on her and attack her body a little bit too. So it looked like she actually got outstruck by Tanisha because Tanisha couldn't land a takedown on her. She was 0 for 7, but she was able to outstrike her and control her in the third round. But to be honest with y'all, I can see Norma winning a 3-round decision, but I also can see a robbery too because Danyelle, she clearly did not win her last fight and they gave it to her. They gave her a unanimous win, a unanimous decision. I can see this fight being somewhat close, somewhat competitive, but I can see Danyelle winning a close fight that she probably don't deserve, which I'm not psychic by any means, but like I can see Normal winning, but she would have to like separate herself from Danyelle. If Tanisha was able to land 88 significant strikes to 51 and she still lose, that means Normal is going to have to come close to finishing her every round. But that's my prediction. Hopefully this fight is not close at all. That's my prediction. Norma's going to have to separate herself and come close to finish her and maybe even get to finish if she can, which I don't think she'd be able to take down Danyelle, but my prediction is Norma winning by decision. We have Jake Collier versus Chris Barnett, and one thing that's interesting is this: both of these fighters fight at heavyweight. I think it would be better for both of their careers if they fought at light heavyweight because of both of their frames. And that's the thing, Jake Collier, he has fight at middleweight and light heavyweight before in the past. Just looking at their body type, it look like they'll be better because they're both athletic guys. They're decent fighters at heavyweight. They'll be even more better at light heavyweight. But fighter one is Jake Collier, 13-7, 5 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission, 4 wins by decision. The thing is with Jake Collier, he's an above average fighter in the heavyweight division. He has good boxing. His boxing is good, technical. Takedowns are okay, not the best, not the worst. He actually has good submission, especially rear naked choke. That's the thing with Jake Collier. He doesn't really finish fights the way he's supposed to. He throws good volume. He averages 5.67 significant strikes per minute, and his striking defense is 51%. But he's not looking to finish his opponent, and he has like a conservative type of style, which is very technical, which is not bad. It's just I would like to see Collier finishing more fights because prior to coming to the UFC, he was finishing most of his opponents. Another thing I noticed with Jake Collier is he struggles against a certain caliber of opponent, against the Andre Arlovskis and Tom Aspinalls and Devin Clarks. He doesn't look as good. His performances are not the best against tougher guys, which is understandable because it's tougher competition. But the thing is, when he fights against the Chase Shermans, the John Volantes, the Alberto Pereiras, he looks like a world beater. So there's a big gap in between when he fights really good opponents and when he fights fighters who are not top notch. But to be honest, to defend Jake, when he fought Andre Arlovski, he actually was able to outland Andre Arlovski and even get takedowns and control him. I honestly think he beat Andre Arlovski against Carlos Felipe. He was able to outstrike Carlos 130 significant strikes to 94. I think he won that fight too. And he was able to land 24 leg kicks. So we easily can be looking at Jake Collier being 4-0 in his last 4 fights. And prior to that, he got steamrolled by Tom Aspinall in 45 seconds. But that's Tom Aspinall. Tom is in top 5 in the heavyweight division. Jake may be a little underrated in the heavyweight division because Devin Clark, that's not the worst loss. You never know which version of Devin Clark you get, so you might lose the good Devin Clark or the top-notch Devin Clark. Jake is not the worst fighter by any means. I would like to see him like having more of a sense of urgency and finishing more of his opponents. His opponent is Chris Barnett. Chris is 22-8, 17 wins by knockout, 0 by submission, 5 wins by decision. He's been knocked out 3 times. One thing that stands out by Chris Barnett is he's only 5'9" in the heavyweight division, and you can tell like him being not as tall as other fighters, he struggles against guys who are bigger and stronger, who applies pressure on him. Like the guys like the Martin Badays and the Ben Rothwells, they're able to put pressure on him and throw hands with him. And you could tell that's not really where Chris Barnett is comfortable. But the thing is with Chris is a long time black belt in Taekwondo, so he's looking to stay on the outside and land spinning kicks and kicks from all angles, which he can do. He has a lot of dexterity in his kicks, and he's really athletic for his size. And he showed it against John Volante when he's able to land the spinning wheel kick in the second round and finish him from strikes. But the thing is, John Volante is not the most seasoned heavyweight. John is not even a natural heavyweight. And John was a lot better 6 years ago than he is now. But that's the thing, Chris, he hasn't really shown, other than against John, he hasn't really shown that he's a top-notch fighter in the heavyweight division, which the talent is there. It's just he has to show it, like he has to show it with his performance. I don't think Chris Barnett is going to beat Jake Collier because Chris has to fight a certain way. He has to control the tempo. He has to control the distance. He has to be the bully. He has to be the hammer. It seems like he gets frustrated when fighters don't fight the way he wants them to. Jake clearly has the better hands, and Chris clearly has the better kicks, but I don't think Jake is going to allow Chris Barnett to get into his kicking rhythm, which I still say I think both of these fighters should cut down to light heavyweight, and I think they'll both look better. I'm predicting Jake to control this fight with his boxing and win a decision. Okay, we have Denis Tiuliulin versus Jamie Pickett. Fighter number 1, Denis Tiuliulin. Denis is 9-6. 8 of his wins come by knockout, 0 come by submission. Obviously, what stands out is he has no submission wins, and 3 of his losses come by submission. So that's clear that that's a part of his game that he needs to work on the most. But in his last fight against Elias Kizriev, basically he was just out-grappled. Elias was able to just take him down repeatedly and control him on the ground. He did so for majority of the first round. In the second round, Elias attempted a takedown on Denis Tiuliulin. Denis was able to stuff it, but Alice was able to capitalize on one mistake and take Denis his back and submit him with a rear naked choke. So this fight, Alice was able to out-grapple Denis Tiuliulin and make it look fairly easy. But to defend Denis, it's tough making your first fight in the UFC against an undefeated fighter as Elias Kizriev, who's 14-0 and 2-0 in the UFC. He was a 1,250 favorite over Denis. A lot of people knew Denis did not have a chance against him. But the thing is with Denis, he's like the Terminator. He walks forward. He doesn't move his head a lot. He can be technical at times, but what wins Denis fights is the fact that he's real durable, has a real good chin. He's relentless with his strikes, and he has a lot of knockout power. And we can see it with 8 of his wins coming by knockout. But with Denis, I'm not seeing a lot of skill. I'm not seeing no grappling. I'm not seeing no technical striking. All I'm seeing is a guy walking forward, not moving his head, looking to land any strike that can knock his opponent out, which he's very capable of doing it. But in the UFC, against any fighter who can put together a game plan and avoid his big strikes, they should be okay. His opponent is Jamie Pickett. Jamie is 13-7. 8 of his wins come by knockout. 1 of his wins come by submission. 4 of his wins come by decision. 1 of his losses come by knockout, and that was against Jordan Wright, which that wasn't the best performance for Jamie Pickett. He attempted to take Jordan Wright down against the cage, but he had no success. Jordan was able to land elbows and hurt Jamie, and eventually go on to TKO him on the ground shortly after. But Jamie has 3 submission losses and 3 decisions. And that's the thing, just like the Jordan Wright loss, he had another loss to Cal Dawkins, to where Cal was just able to repeatedly take him down and control him on the ground and eventually submit him with a Darth choke with 1 second left to go in the fight. So Jamie Pickett had a couple of losses to where it looked like his opponent got it perfect on him. It looked like Jamie didn't even show up to some of these fights. But the thing is with Jamie, he's super athletic. He's real long. His reach is 80. And he can fight long too. It'd be nice if he stuck with his jab and moved around better. He did against Joseph Holmes. So he was able to move around, sticking with the jab, use his footwork and athletic ability, and win a technical striking match against Joseph Holmes. But Joseph, he was making his UFC debut against Jamie Pickett. But it seems like whenever Jamie Pickett fight against anybody who's decent, he normally loses those fights. And that's the thing with Jamie. He has certain things he's good at, but he's not great anywhere. His best part of his game is his footwork, his movement, his speed. And whenever he hurt his opponent, he can really finish him, because he has real brutal ground and pound. But other than that, I'm not seeing no world-class striking. I'm not seeing no world-class grappling. I'm not seeing nothing that really makes him stand out against other guys in UFC, or at least against elite fighters. Jamie is a faster, more seasoned fighter. He actually has wins in the UFC. He's not the most consistent fighter. He's not a bad fighter. There are certain areas of his game he needs to improve on. But my prediction is, I think we're going to see an improved Jamie, who's going to be making better decisions when he's in the UFC octagon. And hopefully he can improve his game to where his skill set can catch up to his athletic ability. This fight, I'm choosing Jamie Pickett to win by a 3-round decision. The UFC is wrong for this one. Next, we have Shamil Abdurakhimov versus Jailton Almeida. I don't know what the UFC was thinking when they did this. I actually do know what they was thinking. I think they're trying to get Shamil out of there. He's a little bit on the rough patch. He's lost 3 in a row. He's 40 years old. He's not the most exciting fighter. The thing is with Shamil, he started his UFC career 5-2, and he lost to Tim Johnson and Derek Lewis, and it's not the worst thing, which he was kind of beating Derek Lewis up until he got knocked out. Nobody knew Derek Lewis had cardio and knockout power in the 4th and 5th round, so that kind of caught everybody by surprise. But his last 3 fights, he's he's been embarrassed in all 3 of them. And he wasn't really known for having a bad chin, but now is 5 knockout losses in his career. But the thing is with Shamil in the UFC, he's trying to take his opponents down and control them. And to be honest, sometimes it looks like he's not even trying to finish them. It just looks like he's just trying to control them on the ground, which is not a bad game plan. It's just he can be a little bit boring at times. He has 9 knockouts, but his game plan is not to stand and trade. His game plan is to get the fight to the ground. And it's interesting because when he fights opponents who he can't take down, he typically loses. When he fights against the Sergey Pavloviches, the Chris Dawkins, the Curtis Blades, he typically loses those fights. He has wins over guys like Walt Harris, Chase Sherman, which I'm not gonna lie, like the Andre Arlovsky and the Marcin Tybura fights are very impressive. So that's the biggest win he has. The biggest win he has on his record is Marcin Tybura, because Marcin is tough. The other guys he beat, the Anthony Hamilton, these guys, some of these guys are not even in the UFC no more. And if they are, they're not gonna be for long. Shamil, he's boring. He's looking to get the fight to the ground. He's 40 years old. It looked like Father Time might have caught up with him, but it seems like Shamil does not want to stand and trade with nobody, and it's clear as day that he's uncomfortable on the feet. His opponent is Jailton Almeida. Jailton, people call him the Brazilian Khabib because he's a big guy. He's 6'4", his reach is 80. He's looking to take his opponent down and finish him. And that's the difference between him and Shamil. Shamil is looking to win on points. All of Jailton wins come off finish. But what's interesting is this fight is going to be a heavyweight. So this is Jailton's second fight at heavyweight, but he's clearly better at light heavyweight because he has the size. Hopefully in this fight, we see a little bit more of Jailton striking, which his striking is not world class, but it's not bad either. A little basic. He throws a lot of kicks, a lot of front kicks, head kicks, and he throws looping punches, and he could be technical at times, but his game plan is to throw kicks enough to throw his opponents off and to get the takedown. So he's looking to back his opponent up to the cage, get him in a clinch, and get the fight to the ground, which he's won 11 fights in a row, so he's worked 11 times in a row. But what's interesting is Shamil, he's one of the best wrestlers in the heavyweight division. It's interesting to see if he can take down somebody that's big, strong, and who has the wrestling pedigree as Shamil. But my prediction is going to be Jailton, the Brazilian Khabib, Almeida by first round, ground and pound. Okay, we got Hakeem Dawodu versus Julian Erosa. First fighter is Hakeem. He has 2 losses, 1 by submission, 1 by decision. The 1 submission loss comes against Danny Henry. Okay, Hakeem is not ranked yet. I know he's at least in the top 20 at best featherweights, but of all people, he lost to Danny Henry. He got knocked down by Danny and then submitted with a guillotine in under 40 seconds. His second loss comes to Mavsar Evlov. In that fight, he was just taken down repeatedly. He was taken down 9 times. And then the fun thing is, in the 3rd round, Hakeem was able to hurt Mavsar and wobbled Mavsar, but then he got taken down again. So, I mean, that was a tough opponent. And Mavsar is undefeated. Mavsar is 16-0. And in the UFC, he's 6-0. So that's not the worst loss to have in your record. But if it wasn't for that loss, there's no doubt that Hakeem will be ranked in top 15 of the UFC's featherweight division. But the thing is with Hakeem, he's very calculated. He's very cerebral. Everything he throws is behind a jab. He's really unpredictable. You never know what he's going to throw next. But he's technically sound. One thing I like about Hakeem is he throws punches and bunches, and he throws good combinations. Hakeem will go to the body, but then end it with a leg kick. Then he'll go to the body, and then end it with a right hand. So you never know what Hakeem is going to do. Hakeem is very talented and he's very tough. Speaking of tough, his opponent is Julian Erosa. Julian is 27-9. 11 of his wins come by knockout. 12 of his wins come by submission. 4 of his wins come by decision. One thing that scares me with Julian is he has 5 knockout losses. That's the thing. His chin is almost getting better, almost like Charles Oliveira. But those knockout losses are still there. Charles Oliveira is not a bad comparison to Julian Erosa, like a young Charles Oliveira, except Charles got better wrestling. But he has 0 submission losses. He has 4 decision losses. He has a ton of heart. And the thing is with Julian, yes, he has some knockout losses, but if you can't finish Julian, he typically will come back and finish you. I'm not gonna lie to you, he do got 1 finish on his record that I don't really like, and that's that finish against Nate Landwehr. He was able to TKO Nate Landwehr in the first round with a flying knee, but in my opinion, that's one of the worst stoppages ever because Nate wasn't out and he was fighting. That's one of the worst stoppages I've seen in a long time, but he got the W and he showed improved striking. But that's the thing with Julian Erosa, because we know how he is on the ground. The only question mark there is with his striking, because he's improving slowly and gradually, but he's been doing MMA for a long time. So how much more can he improve? He's been doing MMA since 2010, and he can avoid some shots, but he gets hit a lot. He absorbs 6.51 strikes per minute, so that's kind of scary. And his striking defense is only 48%, but he lands 6.29 significant strikes per minute too, so it's not the worst thing. That's another thing I like about Julian. He goes for the finishes, because we have a lot of guys who we criticize them for not pulling the trigger. Julian always pulls the trigger. That's one thing I like about him. I think Hakeem has the style to beat Julian. He's composed, he's technical, he doesn't absorb a lot of damage, he's unpredictable with his striking, his kicks, and he doesn't slow down, so he has great cardio. It'd be interesting in the third round to see if Julian and Rosa can break Hakeem, but my prediction is Hakeem by decision.
Okay, we back with another one. Johnny Walker versus Yohan Cutelaba. Both of these guys are decent fighters, but if I'm gonna keep it real, both of these guys are in the top 15, but neither one of these guys will be champion in the UFC. I mean, you never know, but I'm pretty sure these guys are the definition of guys who are talented, powerful, explosive, but they don't have the highest fight IQ, and they both fight with no game plan. It's almost like they out there just swinging for the fences. It's weird with Johnny Walker. He might go out there and win by knockout in 13 seconds. Then his next fight, he might go out there and not do nothing for 5 rounds. So these are two of the most inconsistent fighters in the UFC. Fighter number 1 is Johnny Walker. He's 18-7. 15 of those wins come by knockout, 4 losses by knockout. When Johnny Walker first came to the UFC, he won 3 fights by knockout in less than 40 seconds. People were saying, yeah, he could beat Jon Jones because of his size. He's a big guy. He's 6'5", and his reach is 82. So people were saying, okay, he can stuff takedowns. Maybe he could beat Jon Jones. He has the size. He has the athletic ability, the knockout power, but the one thing that he don't have is the fight IQ. So Johnny, in his last 5 fights, he's 1-4 and easily can be 0-5, because when he fought Ryan Spann hurt him, kept on shooting for takedowns even though he wasn't getting it. So that was a bad move by Ryan Spann. If he would have went for the knockout after he hurt Johnny, he probably would have won the fight. The only thing is with Johnny, he lost to Jamal Hill. Okay, Jamal Hill, he's about to be in the top 5. Thiago Santos, okay, Thiago's tough, and that fight was close. That fight could have went either way. So Johnny hasn't never lost to nobody trash. His level is like around the top 15, maybe around 12. But Johnny, he throws a lot of wild attacks, flying knees, elbows, spinning kicks. He's real unpredictable. But the thing is, he's shown that only works against certain level of opponents, against the Justin Ledets and the Khalil Roundtrees and the Misha Serkinovs. That doesn't work against the Jamal Hills and the Corey Andersons. But his opponent is Yohan Cutelaba. And Yohan, he has some of the worst fight IQ in the UFC. 12 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. He showed low fight IQ against Ryan Spann in his last fight. He was beating Ryan Spann on the feet, and he decided to take him down. A minute later, he ended up getting submitted with a guillotine. And the funny thing is, that's Ryan Spann's bread and butter is on the ground. So Yohan should have kept the fight standing up. And the funny thing is, his takedown defense is good enough to keep the fight standing up. So he made a huge mistake against Ryan Spann. Johnny Walker's size, he's 6'5", his reach is 82. It seems like these guys are a little bit bigger than Yohan Cutelaba, who's 6'1", and his reach is 75. And I don't think Yohan can take Johnny Walker down. So my prediction is Johnny Walker by first round knockout.
Okay. Next, we have Irene Aldana versus Macy Chasen. And this honestly might be fight of the night. Yeah, we got 2 girls. They both are finishers. They're both tall and long for their weight class, and they both have pretty good striking. So first fighter is Irene Aldana, 13-6, 7 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission, 3 wins by decision, 2 losses by knockout, 4 losses by decision. One thing that stands out is she's 5'9", so she's tall for the weight class, for a bantamweight, and she had 7 knockouts. And this girl has some real brutal knockout power, and she has some of the best boxing I've seen from any female MMA fighter. Like her footwork, her movement, her hands, like she has great combinations. She goes to the body. She has a couple of wins that she won by TKO by going to the body, especially before the UFC. But even in the UFC, she was able to embarrass Ketlin Vieira. That's really her game. Her game is to use her boxing and break her opponents down and look to go for a finish. She's also well-rounded, and she has 84% takedown defense, but she has a lot of submissions too. She's real good on the ground. And the thing is, she got outmatched by Holly Holm, but Holly Holm is a future Hall of Famer, and Raquel Pennington is a veteran. So all the people she lost to are like elite fighters: Caitlin, Leslie Smith, Raquel Pennington, and Holly Holm. So she's only lost to elite fighters. But her opponent is Macy Chasen. Mason is a little taller, so she's taller than Irene. She's 5'11", but she's 8-2, 2 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission, 4 wins by decision. And the thing is, with Macy, she has real good boxing too, not as good as Irene. And she's kind of more of a kickboxer because she throws a lot of kicks, but she's trying to get the fight to the ground. We saw that against Norma Dumont. She was able to take down Norma 6 times and control her for like half the fight, you know. So you never see a female fighter that's as tall and long as her with her type of takedowns and wrestling. She has to get this fight to the ground because Irene is very dangerous. She's very powerful. And Macy, the thing is, she won the Ultimate Fighter, and she was actually knocking out fighters on the Ultimate Fighter, which she only has 2 knockouts on her record, but she's very dangerous, especially in her left hand. She hasn't really shown it in the UFC like she's capable of, because she has 2 knockouts in the UFC. She has real good power in her hands too, but not on the level of Irene. This fight is interesting because Macy has the wrestling advantage, but Irene's takedown defense is 84%. So this is going to be an interesting matchup, like wrestler versus striker. Even though they're both well-rounded, they're both good everywhere. This is a tough one. I'm going to go with Irene. You know, she's a little shorter. Her reach is a little bit shorter too, but she's still tall for the weight class. And I don't think Macy can take her down and control her on the ground. But then again, I don't think Irene can knock her out, because Macy's never been knocked out before. Yeah, but my prediction on this one is going to be Irene Aldana by 3-round decision. We got Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. First fighter, Kevin Holland, 23-7, 13 wins by knockout, 6 wins by submission, 4 wins by decision. Never been knocked out, 2 losses by submission, 5 losses by decision. And that's the thing, like them 5 losses come by decision. He tends to play around a lot in his fights. I'm a big Kevin Holland fan, but there's times when it's almost like he's not all the way there focused like he should be. But like, he's very dangerous. He has a lot of knockout power, especially for his frame, because he's tall, long, kind of skinny. But one thing that stands out with Kevin Holland is his reach. His reach is around 80, so he have a significant reach advantage over Daniel, which I don't think that'll matter because Daniel is gonna have to get the fight on the inside. Yeah, this is Kevin's 3rd fight in the welterweight division, which I've been said for years that Kevin should fight at welterweight. He was a small middleweight. He was weighing in at 183 and 184, and those guys are cutting down from over 200 pounds. So the bigger, stronger wrestler will have that advantage. Yeah, he's a real good boxer. He stays on the outside. He has phenomenal footwork. He fights longer than what he is. He throws his right hand like a laser. He can get wild at times, get a little frustrated, and start throwing looping punches here and there, but he's clean. His punches are straight. He throws his punches right down the pipe. Yeah, he's finished his last 2 opponents in welterweight. He's looking much better. He doesn't look like he's getting overpowered like he was in middleweight. His opponent is Daniel Rodriguez, and Daniel is like the Terminator. Like Daniel, he's 16-2. 8 wins by knockout, 4 by submission, 4 by decision. Never been knocked out, never been submitted. 2 losses by decision, and 1 loss against Nicholas Dalby. He really didn't lose that fight. He was taken down repeatedly, but on the feet he was destroying Nicholas. He lost a decision, and he really should be undefeated in the UFC. So he should be on a 13-fight winning streak. But his last fight was against Kevin Lee. Kevin, the veteran who done fought the who's who in the UFC, especially in the lightweight division. Kevin took him down the first round. The second and third round, it looked like Kevin couldn't really get the fight to the ground like he should have. He took him down a couple times, but he couldn't keep Daniel down. Yeah, so Daniel was able to win a unanimous decision over Kevin Lee. He hasn't really been in that much trouble in his fights, other than when he fought against Dwight Grant, when Dwight hurt him, but then he was able to come back and recover and knock out Dwight Grant. But that's the thing with Daniel. He has good boxing. It's not great. It's not bad, but it's not great either. It's good. He has good boxing. He likes to fight on the inside. And that's the thing with Daniel. He breaks people down. He breaks their will. He breaks their spirit. And then when they start to slow down, that's when he walks forward and finishes them. And that's what he did against Dwight Grant. He was able to pour on Dwight, and Dwight didn't have no answer for the forward pressure. But it looked like Daniel was getting better though, because if you look at his last couple fights, it looked like his striking is getting better. He's throwing more kicks. His boxing is getting a little bit better. So if Daniel was getting better each fight, he might have a chance. Originally, I picked Daniel to win this fight, but the more I think about it, I don't think he's going to be able to get on the inside of Kevin Holland. I think Kevin Holland is going to keep the distance. He's going to stay on the outside, and he's going to counter with straight punches. He might get to finish, because I know Daniel is real durable. He has one of the best chins in the UFC in any weight class. But I also think Kevin can catch him coming in, so there will be a lot of opportunities for Kevin, unless Daniel fights smart and on the outside. But if he's on the outside, he's not going to be able to land against Kevin, so he has to get the fight on the inside, where he's able to make it his type of fight, which is a brawl. Like, he wants to get on the inside and just break his opponent down and just unload on him. But my prediction on this fight is, I'm going to say Kevin Holland by second round submission. I think he's going to hurt Daniel. Daniel's going to recover a little bit. I think Kevin's going to finish him with a Darth choke. We have Jingliang versus the legend himself, Tony Ferguson. We might be witnessing Tony Ferguson's last fight in the UFC or in his career. First fighter, Jingliang Lee, 19-7, 10 wins by knockout, and that's what he's really known for, his knockout power. He's got some of the most brutal knockouts in welterweight history. 4 wins by submission, which is kind of odd to know that, because he don't really go for a lot of submissions. 5 wins by decision, never been knocked out. That's interesting because he's very durable. He has a great chin. He normally takes a punch to give one. The thing that stands out to me is those 2 submission losses, which is very interesting because, in my opinion, that's the only way Tony's gonna win this fight. He got to get this fight to the ground. Jingliang, UFC veteran. He only really has one way to lose, and that's really on the ground. He's knocked out a lot of guys who wanted to keep the fight standing up with him. And that's the thing, even with Khamzat, people were saying that if Khamzat didn't get the quick submission, which was smart for Khamzat, to get the fight to the ground. So they were saying if he didn't get the fight to the ground, he would have been in trouble, especially in the second and third round against Jingliang, because over time he gets better, he gets stronger. He has a lot of knockouts against guys like Elise dos Santos, Santiago Ponzinibbio, Muslim Salikov. These are guys we don't see get knocked out often. And a lot of these guys, if you could knock out Muslim and Santiago and Elisa, you could definitely knock out Tony Ferguson. But that's what it is with Jingliang. He throws kicks occasionally, but he has real good head movement, and his bread and butter is he has a right hand. He has a sneaky left hook and the overhand right. And if he land any one of those, the lights out. Obviously, we know who the legend Tony Ferguson is. He has a record of 25-7, 12 wins by knockout, 8 wins by submission, 5 wins by decision. This is very important, right? Because Tony, he has knockout power. He's more dangerous on the ground with his chokes, his Darth choke. But he has 5 wins by decision. This version of Tony that wins by decision is the version we need to see. Like when he fought against RDA back in 2016, this was the best version of Tony. That version against RDA, because he fought real smart. He was able to stay on the outside. He didn't get hit a lot. He was able to use his reach, because his reach is like just 76. So that's outstanding. Even though he's coming up from lightweight, he'll have a 5-inch reach advantage against Jingliang. That's something that he can use more of instead of getting into these firefights. And the thing is, Tony's not really a brawler, but he's kind of unorthodox. Throws a lot of elbows. He throws punches from weird angles, and it works 90% of the time against certain fighters. But against elite fighters, it don't really work. It doesn't work against the Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira, the Benils. But those are the cream of the crop. These guys are in the top 5. That's nothing against people writing Tony off, but like Tony, he's lost to guys in the top 6, top 5. And then there's one way to beat Tony. You have to take him down, and you have to control him on the ground safely without him submitting you, because he's the worst when he's on his back. But he did get knocked out his last fight against Michael Chandler, but nobody saw that front kick coming. He was actually winning, but then he got taken down. He knocked Michael down in the first round, but he got taken down midway and got controlled. So I think Michael was probably going to take him down in the second and third round too. And that's the thing is with Tony, in a lot of his fights, he starts off losing, and he's kind of a slow starter. And it's not until his opponent gets tired, that's when he kind of turns up. But the problem is, everybody is not going to get tired. None like Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira, they're not going to slow down. That's why he's able to lose to guys like that, because he gets better as the fight goes on. But if he's fighting against people who also gets better, he has less chance of coming back and winning. Can he do that against Jingliang? They're both kind of slow starters, to be honest. But Tony is a way slow starter than Jingliang. But Tony, does he have the wrestling? Because his wrestling is okay, he just doesn't use it that often. Can he get the fight to the ground? Maybe. He might can take the fight to the ground, because Jingliang has 60% takedown defense. I think he definitely can get this fight to the ground. He's going to have to mix it up very well to do that and not take a lot of chances. If Tony take chances against Jingliang, his career is over with. But I'm thinking Tony is going to go out there with a game plan. He's going to stay on the outside and outpoint Jingliang in a boring technical fight. So that's my prediction. I'm predicting Tony Ferguson to win a 3-round decision off points against Jingliang. This is the main event of UFC 279. We have Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz. I don't really know why this fight is happening. I don't see the point of it. Khamzat, he's ranked number 3. He just beat Gilbert, who was ranked in the top 3. So he has Kobe and Usman ahead of him. I don't know why he's fighting Nate Diaz. I think this is a money fight for Khamzat. But yeah, this is interesting because Nate Diaz, he has a couple opponents who he fought against, who he beat, who nobody thought he would beat. And the biggest one is the Conor McGregor, which they fought twice, but the first time Nate fought Conor on short notice, and he really had no chance. He got beat up the first round, but then the second round, Conor started to slow down. He ended up trying to take Nate down and got submitted with a rear naked choke. And then the second fight was close, was real close, but then Conor won a close majority decision. But I would argue that Anthony Pettis fight, nobody thought Nate was going to win that, because that was right after Anthony knocked out Steven Wonderboy Thompson. People thought Anthony was back, so people thought Showtime was back, so nobody gave Nate a chance. And I see why, because Nate is 20-13, so 13 is a lot of losses to have in MMA, especially with only 20 wins. He's getting almost close to being a 500 fighter. But the thing is, does Khamzat has the style to beat Nate Diaz? The way to beat Nate Diaz is leg kicks, really any kind of kicks to frustrate Nate. Nate wants to fight a boxing match, and if he can hurt you and submit you or get you tired to where you're shooting like Conor McGregor, or you're wrestling now, then he can guillotine you or triangle you. It's a certain way you got to beat Nate. It's a certain way his opponents have fought him. They didn't fight Nate head up. They had to stick to a game plan. Like when Ben Henderson was throwing the jab to his legs, to his thigh. A lot of people say Khamzat didn't look too good against Gilbert Burns. They say his cardio wasn't there. He was only good for like 2 rounds, and he was done in a third. So they saying in the 5-round fight, there's no way he can go 5 rounds with Nate. Khamzat is 11-0, 6 wins by knockout, 4 by submission. His only decision win was against Gilbert Burns, which was really close, but it could have went either way. People are saying Khamzat cannot go 5 rounds with Nate. He has to finish him. And I agree. He has to get a finish against Nate Diaz. And the thing is, what's interesting is the wrestling. The wrestling is what's going to separate Khamzat from Nate, because Khamzat, he can take Nate down repeatedly and ground and pound him and hurt him in just any opportunity he can. I'm not saying he can submit Nate with a rear naked choke like he did against Jingliang. He definitely can take Nate down and ground and pound him and do a lot of damage from the top and just let Nate hold his weight. Khamzat may have like 20 pounds on Nate when it's time to fight. He'll be the bigger, stronger, and more powerful guy. He can mix up the striking with the takedowns and catch Nate and hurt Nate, but I don't think he can outbox Nate. So he can't make it a boxing match. He has to do leg kicks. He has to get takedowns or catch Nate looking to stuff the takedowns and then land his right hand. He has devastating power in his right hand. So that's what Khamzat should do. What Nate should do is Nate has to survive and get this fight into the 3rd round. Nate has to get this fight to the 3rd round, really the 4th round. If Nate can survive by any means, it'll still be hard to submit Nate Diaz, even if Khamzat getting full mount, or if he take Nate's back. Nate's still hard to submit. He only been submitted once, and that was in 2006, so that was a long time ago. Nate has to survive and get to the 3rd round. The problem is, if he loses the first 3 rounds, maybe even a 10-8 round on one of them, that's 3 rounds he's down, so Nate may need to finish. He might need to finish if he give up 3 rounds. But this is very interesting. If Nate beat Khamzat, who's ranked number 3, it'd be remarkable. But my prediction is I'm going to go with Khamzat by 2nd round TKO from ground and pound.
Like this video and subscribe.